episode, we are going to explain the procedure to connect all the gauge, oil pressure gauge, temperature gauge, fuel gauge, tachometer, hour meter. We are going to connect those gauge in the dashboard of your boat, and we are going to integrate those gauge to the harness of the engine. Remember, in order to send the signal to the gauge, we are going to use the sensors. In this particular case, we are going to use oil pressure sensor, temperature sensor, and fuel sensor. Alright, in parallel, I am going to connect the ignition position. And those are the sensors. This is the temperature sensor. Where is located? On the thermostat housing. This is the fuel sensor. Where is located? Inside of the fuel tank. There are different types. Float like this, other one in a vertical, like the picture that you have right now, that work with the pressure difference, and other one electronics. And for the fuel sensor, one is ground and the other one is the signal. What is the color for the signal on the oil, on the fuel sensor? What is the color for the signal? What is the color for the signal? The color is pink. 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 I don't have pink, I am going to use the red one. And this is the procedure to connect the gauge. Right now, you are ready to connect any type of gauge in any type of mode. Oh, Mr. Lopez, normally on the gauge, they have a light. Oh yes, I am going to draw the light bulb here. The light bulb have one connection to ground, and the other one, the positive is connected with ignition. In other words, immediately I activate the ignition switch or preheat, I have power here and the light is on. Okay, this is the alternator. If you remember, this is the output signal positive. That output signal enters into the run relay in order to keep the engine running. And this is the other AC output signal on the tachometer, on the alternator. That signal, that AC output signal is used. All the tachometers, if you check the back of the tachometer, right now you have a tachometer in this corner of your screen. The tachometer RPMs in the back, they have three terminals. One terminal for ignition, other terminal for ground, and other terminal for signal. What happens when I have problems with my gauge? Oil pressure, temperature, and fuel. I want to know if the problem is on the sensor, or if the problem is on the sender, or if the problem is on the gauge. The recommendation to eliminate easily, you need isolate. All the time in my videos, I explain to you that the process to solve it, different situation is isolate or divide the problem in sections. In this particular case, you have a problem with the oil pressure gauge. It's not moving. You need to know if the problem is the gauge, or if the problem is the sensor, or if the problem is the wire, the sender. The first step is verify if the gauge is in good condition. Let me explain the procedure. You need prepare a small piece of wire, the cable, and you need disconnect the terminal from the signal, and disconnect this cable. You disconnect this cable, and you keep connected the ground cable and the ignition cable. And now, with power on the ignition, with power in this terminal and this cable disconnected, you make a jump with the external cable, with alligator cable, in between the signal and the ground. And immediately the needle of the gauge should be pointed to full, maximum. When you remove the connection, the needle can return to empty. In that case, this is an indication that the gauge is in good condition. With the same procedure, you can verify the oil pressure gauge or the temperature gauge.